MTN News. This is Positively Montana, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union.
Hello and welcome to Positively Montana. I'm Cody Boyer. Well, it's a collection of some of our best stories this week about people making a difference and doing positive things.
Bringing healthier food to the dinner tables of Native American families now and for years to come. It all starts with a seed. I talked to a couple passionate about using lessons of their ancestors to make that happen and their quest to get others involved.
This one is mandan squash.
Justin and Bailey Stewart, a husband and wife team from the Crow Reservation.
Gotta sometimes smell the dirt and take it in.
Growing their family at the same time, growing better food for Montana's indigenous reservations.
Definitely, like I said, you want to eat the outside and before it gets too far, and then conserve the seed on the inside as well.
They call this a labor of love, spending their time this summer as interns with the Montana Indigenous Food Sovereignty Initiative.
These are tribal lands, like this is treaty land, and knowing that we get to work with it every day, and eventually we'll be able to, like, the food and the seeds that we have here, we'll be able to share with the community, the indigenous community. Is something that's really amazing for me to be a part of.
On this hot Montana afternoon, I found the pair hard at work. Even Bailey, due to give birth in October, tending to the crops of the ancestral garden at the MSU Horticulture Farm.
We're gonna sift it to separate the pollen from the anthers, and then the white bags are actually where the silk is coming out, and that's what's gonna get pollinated.
Other days, they spend their time at the Indigenous Learning Garden of Story Mill Park.
Each plant helps each other.
Eventually, the stewards will help get these crops from farm to table, from the ground here to indigenous communities around Montana.
To be working these seeds now that are hundreds of years old is amazing. And to preserve these colors, to preserve the way it looks compared to the modern day corn or seed is amazing to me, because it's not just here for me, it's here for all the generations to come as well.
Here's one that is pollinated.
Raise the crops, save the seeds, and pass them on. They will be sent in bundles to multiple indigenous communities.
This is not only my tribe's seeds, it's other tribal seeds that are from around. So these will also be passed on.
The stewards say it's all with the hope of inspiring reservations to start their own gardens and get people excited to grow seeds that are native to the area.
Teach them, other younger ones that are of interest, or even older ones that have their own gardens that just want to know how to tend to it better.
Creating a more resilient food system and a healthier one too.
Before the reservation era, we were growing our own foods, we were foraging for our own foods and hunting on our own lands. But when the reservation era came, we started getting government rations, and that's kind of when the unhealthy eating started. And a lot of diseases like diabetes, heart disease, you started to see that rise in Native communities.
The main thing is that we're all learning, and we're all passing it on.
And that's the other part of their mission, inviting every member of the Southwest Montana community to come out here and learn about the magic of planting seeds.
I learned all of this by trial and error and just listening, like just standing back and listening to everybody.
And by being out here with your hands in the dirt in the garden?
Yep, literally.
Growing a better future for their Montana family and yours as well.
We think about generations to come. It's not about us. It's about the ones who are going to come after us.
The seeds that will be saved will be placed into an ancestral seed bank in the new American Indian Hall building. It will be opening on Indigenous Peoples Day this October. For MTN News, I'm Holly Brantley.
You have no idea how amazing it feels.
It was just supposed to be a short documentary featuring Angel Flight West and how the program helps families who need medical care out of state and recruits pilots to help get them there. 3 years ago, producer, director, and creator Joe McNeil of Missoula had read about the program in a social media post, so he contacted Angel Flight West wing leader and pilot Michael Burks.
So I asked him about what would he think about me doing a documentary on this, and he thought it was a great idea.
When Joe approached me, all that mattered to me was getting help to recruit. So I said, no problem, let's do it. And now we've got this phenomenal documentary that we think is going to actually make a global impact.
It already has. Even before its premiere, Angels Do Fly West is already winning film awards, either winning or placing in the top 5 in the Best Short Documentary category. It even won in a category Joe McNeil didn't enter.
And in the Los Angeles Film Awards, it won the Most Inspirational Movie, nominated by the judges of the film festival.
This is Michael Burks, and he wears flip-flops when he drives his airplane.
The documentary tells the story of Missoula's Maya Toon and her journey with Angel Flight West and pilot Michael Burks. Maya has a rare bone condition and has spent a lot of time in Michael's bright green airplane. Michael and his family have become a part of hers. I asked her how she felt about the film.
I was surprised how much I was in it, and I was a little bit embarrassed just because I was like, my voice is so high, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a good message, and I really like it. I really hope it brings in new pilots. I really hope it helps a lot of people.
I think we watched it about 50 times between all the beginning to the editing to the end. And I could tell you that there wasn't a time that I haven't seen this that I didn't get choked up, even though I knew it was coming. The total entire operations, everything about it, the need, just the strength and courage of these people. You can watch this over and over and over again, and it will never go away.
I think that if people could step back and see what one thing, one flight could do, and how much it benefits and helps, I think a lot more people would do it.
It's 3 years of work that came down to 12.5 minutes in a documentary that has struck a chord with those who've seen it. It's a story that informs, inspires, and shows how something so simple can make a lifelong impact on another person. It may win a lot of awards, but the real prize is to continue the mission of Angel Flight West beyond these skies.
In every state, I would love to see this branch out and see Angel Flight companies throughout the United States. I've got some inquiries out of Greece. I've got inquiries out of Canada that are interested in learning more about Angel Flight. So this could go worldwide.
In Missoula, Jill Valley, MTN News.
The greatest generation, and today that generation gathered here to be able to take to the skies once again.
You can imagine 13 guys, the average age, they're between 94 and 102 years old, taking these flights. I mean, talk about the greatest generation. These people are World War II heroes. They fought for freedom. They really stand for everything, that's Montana.
And one of those heroes, Sergeant Robert Weber, a gunner in World War II.
Really don't know where to start. Was called to the service, so I was kind of a country boy.
A country boy that risked everything for his country.
So it was our job. We flew 5 PW missions to all the different camps that they had in there. We parachuted pallets of supplies to them. We had to fly just a few miles above stalling speed at about 200 feet and try and drop them in parachutes and hit in the middle of the stockade. Our boys were just starving to death because they didn't have enough food for their own people. They sure as heck weren't going to give any to the PWs.
Robert and his team not only aided the prisoners of war, but was miles away from the beginning of the end.
On the way home, we had heard that they dropped a big bomb north of us, and we weren't very impressive. We dropped a whole bunch of little bombs, and we weren't home till we got back to Saipan that we realized that was the first atomic bomb. And it wasn't very long then, a couple of days while they dropped the second one, and then the war was over.
And today, he and his fellow World War II veterans take to the sky.
We all had to be familiarized with flying in case the pilot got killed or something, so we could take over. It was just a year ago they had this deal here where they'd take us for little rides, and so I asked if I could kind of fly the plane a little bit, so he kind of showed me how to do it. That was the first time I'd ever flown a plane in my life. It was very enjoyable, and now I guess we're going to do the same thing again today.
And though Robert may not be flying the plane today, through Dream Flights, the greatest generation will be able to see the valley from up above. In Bozeman, Jane McDonald, MTN News.
It's that time of year again when the back-to-school buzz starts cutting into summer vacation. But the kids in the Blackfeet Reservation head back to school with a fresh new look, thanks to an alumnus who just wanted to give back. Logan Gobert is a Browning native who has experienced firsthand the struggle many children go through.
I'm from the Blackfeet Reservation, and just up there, you know, like poverty and everything else is ignored, just kind of like tucked away in the corner.
He's trying to change that by boosting kids' confidence one cut at a time.
I'd rather go help, you know, where I came from. There's plenty of like opportunities here in the city, and there's plenty of programs that help out the kids here. There's nothing up there, you know.
Armed with their scissors and razors, Gobert and his crew will be offering their talents to the district's nearly 2,000 students.
Like I got 14 spots, so hopefully somewhere around there, you know. I just want to be able to have enough spots to fill for the kids, you know, like to be able to get everybody in and not have to turn anybody away. That's the main goal.
It not only hits home for Gobert, but a majority of his haircut crew as well.
The team that he's bringing is not just people that work for him in his shop, but there's a group of people who are currently in the Montana Academy of Salons who are from here.
Logan says cutting hair helped him get ahead in life, and now he wants to give other kids that opportunity as well.
It's always been like a goal to help kids, just because of like how much like everything was ignored when I was a kid, you know? When I was a child, like there was really no role models. There was nobody for me to look up to, so like I just want to hopefully somehow, some way, one of them kids sits in my chair and he comes from the same place that I came from, you know? And like,
it's not for the money. No, it's a labor of love.
Maybe just one kid will appreciate it, you know? And that'll make it worth it for us.
Haircuts are something so many people take for granted.
I believe that everybody deserves a chance to feel good about themselves, regardless if your parents can afford it or not, you know?
No matter how big you make it or how far you go, it's always important to remember where you came from and to give back to the community that built you. In Browning, Lindsay Stinger, MTN News.
More than 4,000 athletes will be gathering in Tokyo to compete in the Paralympic Games. They'll be following a path blazed by many athletes with disabilities before them, including a couple living right here in Helena. In boxes and at the back of closets, Tim and Judy Harris have accumulated mountains of memorabilia, photos, patches, and dozens of medals.
It's almost bordering on obscene how many are here.
Each item points to a history of sporting achievement. During the 60s, the Harrises were among a group of pioneering wheelchair athletes, competing in the early days of what would become the Paralympics.
They were wonderful memories, and that was a part of our life.
Tim Harris had polio at an early age and took up wheelchair sports as a college student. In those days, athletes with disabilities generally had to take up multiple sports, and he excelled in everything from wheelchair racing to discus and shot put to swimming. He qualified for the second Paralympic Games, held in 1964, also in Tokyo, and he went on to win 10 medals. He remembers traveling through the city and taking part in the opening and closing ceremonies.
It was pretty exciting to be in such a large celebration at the beginning and at the ending, things that I had not experienced before. It was terrific.
In 1967, Tim Harris met another competitor, Judy Webb. She developed a disability as a teenager and only began wheelchair sports earlier that year, but she quickly took to archery. In 1968, she brought home a silver medal and a bronze from the Paralympics in Tel Aviv, Israel, competing against people with much more experience.
That was a real joy to me to do as well as I did there on such a much larger competitive field.
Wheelchair athletes had to overcome more than just their opponents in those days, 2 decades before the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Inaccessibility was a given. Everything was inaccessible. When we traveled, it wasn't unusual for them to have to carry us on and off buses and up and down stairs and take doors off hinges so that we could get into bathrooms.
The Harrises say getting involved in sports was a great way to build character, and it gave them a chance to experience other cultures and connect with people from different backgrounds.
When we are involved in that kind of competition, there is not just fierce competition back and forth, but the building of relationship.
The Paralympics have changed a lot since the 60s. More athletes take part, and the Games get much more media attention. The Harrises hope people watching will remember how hard the athletes have worked to get there, and how much they've accomplished.
We should think about, number one, the athletic ability, which should communicate to people that folks with disabilities are as able as anyone else.
For me, my takeaway was, you can do anything.
The Paralympics will run from August 24th through September 5th. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
More stories from the heart of the Treasure State are on the way when Positively Montana continues after this, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union. Welcome back to Positively Montana, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union.
It can be a challenge to keep children busy and constructive in the summer, but just such a project for the Bitterroot Women's Club happened after they reached out to the Darby Community Library.
Our club is always looking for ways to become involved in our community. Our mission is to improve our community through volunteerism. And whatever project comes up, if our women are interested in it, and if it does something to improve our communities, then we're all for it.
The idea? Put together no-sew tie blanket kits where the kids participating in storytime activities could easily produce blankets to comfort the dogs and cats at the Humane Society shelter.
I don't even know where the idea came from. I just was having ideas one day. I was on Pinterest looking for ideas, I think for my summer reading program activities. And then Sarah contacted me and wanted some things they could partner with the Darby Library, and this just was the perfect fit.
The Bitterroot Women's Club in general, all of us are pretty crafty, and so we really enjoyed the opportunity to do this project. And then to pass that on to the children, where the children can take and tie the blankets and put them together, it just continues down the lane.
The club put together several dozen of the high-quality kits, complete with pre-measured and pre-cut materials and full instructions that are easy to follow, and delivered them to the library this week.
This is the one that appealed most to us, and it's creating kits that the community can convert into blankets and ultimately donate to the Humane Society. So it's a win-win-win project.
I've always, whenever I've worked with children, tried to have them do some type of a service project, and so this will be a perfect fit for that.
And not only will the kids feel they've done something positive, but the shelter animals will have a source of comfort. In Darby, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Positively Montana continues after this. Welcome back to Positively Montana, sponsored by Whitefish Credit Union.
At first, it wasn't really the music as much as the piano. I just was really interested in the instrument. But when I turned about 12 or 13, I really fell in love with classical music especially, and just what music does for people.
In a time where the term is thrown around a bit too much, there's no question Tanner Jordan is a phenom.
Tanner's one of the best I've ever taught. And I hate to say that because some of my really fine students are going to hear that. They teach in college, they've gone on to have wonderful musical careers, but Tanner is definitely exceptional.
As the professor of piano at MSUB for years, Dorothea Cromley was used to college-age students. But when colleague Leslie Jordan asked Dorothea to consider taking on her 13-year-old grandson, it only took one meeting.
After I heard Tanner play, not only was Leslie my friend, and I wanted to do it for her, but I also wanted to do it for me because it was such a pleasure to hear such a wonderful artist. I would tell him, even when he was in his young teens, that someday I'd hear him play in one of the big concert halls in Europe because he had it all.
He's already played in some of the biggest in America, including Carnegie Hall, after winning the International American Protege Concerto competition in 2018. Last month, the stakes were even higher. Jordan was named one of 3 finalists across all instruments that would compete in person at the 4th annual Runnicles Music Competition in Jackson, Wyoming. First prize, a $25,000 scholarship. Anybody in the world would be nervous.
What mostly got my adrenaline going is sitting backstage while the other pianist was performing, because he was amazing. And I was just thinking, there's no chance.
But Jordan isn't just anybody.
I wouldn't say my nerves get to me so much in a bad way, but they just make me really excited and really hopeful about a performance.
An emotion he puts on full display each time he plays.
I think my strength is being able to project to the audience the character of the music and the expression of it.
Yo-Yo Ma said when he was, starting out on the cello, he knew he didn't have half the technique that some of the other cellists had, but what he had was heart and soul, and he knew how to speak through his music, and that's Tanner.
Jordan will start his freshman year at BYU later this month, with that $25,000 going toward a major in piano performance, all he's wanted to do since he first sat down at the bench.
I hope to be doing a lot of performing, because I think that's what brings the most purpose to music, is sharing it with other people.
What can he go on to do?
Anything he chooses to do, and I think he chooses to be a concert pianist, and I think that's exactly what he will be.
Inspiring stuff. And again, thanks for watching and enjoy your day out there. We'll see you next week with new Positively Montana stories. Have a good rest of your day.
The MTN, Montana's news leader.